I had always been the kind of person who worked quietly behind the scenes. I never tried to stand out. I just wanted to do my job and do it well. I was working at a small tech company, mostly doing back-end support. The work wasn't exciting, but it paid the bills. I thought if I kept my head down and worked hard, maybe I'd get noticed someday. That changed when our manager announced a team competition. He said we needed fresh ideas, something new to present to one of our biggest clients. Everyone was excited, especially the seniors. I figured I didn't have a shot. I wasn't even supposed to be in the meeting, but they let everyone join just to show company unity. I remember thinking, why not try? So that night, I stayed late at the office. Everyone had gone home, but I sat there at my desk with cold coffee and a notebook. I kept drawing rough sketches and writing down notes. After hours of trying and failing, I finally had something. It was an idea for a new project management system, simple, clean, and fast. Something our clients could use to manage their teams better. The next day, I skipped lunch to put together a presentation. I even used free design tools to make it look nice. When I showed it to one of my coworkers, he raised his eyebrows. "This is actually really good," he said. That gave me hope. When the meeting day came, I was a wreck inside. My palms were sweaty, and I kept checking my laptop over and over again, even though I already knew everything worked perfectly. I barely touched my breakfast that morning. I just kept replaying the presentation in my head, worrying I'd mess it up or forget something important. As I walked into the conference room, I could feel the weight of every eye in the room, even if most people weren't really paying attention yet. My heart was pounding so loud, I thought maybe someone could hear it. When the meeting started, my boss went through his usual updates. And then, he paused and looked around the table. "Anything else before we wrap up?" he asked, like it was nothing. My throat tightened. I hesitated for a second. I almost let the moment pass. But then I forced myself to speak up. My voice came out shaky. "Actually, I've been working on something," I said quietly. "Can I show you all?" My boss gave me this half smile, like he already knew what was coming, or maybe like he didn't expect much. He waved his hand in this lazy, dismissive way. "Go ahead," he said. So I stood up and walked to the front of the room. My legs felt like noodles. I opened my laptop, took a deep breath, and started explaining. I showed the first slide, the idea. Then the next, the problem it solved. I walked them through the features, the clean and simple interface, and how it could literally save our clients hours every single week. At first, no one said anything. People just stared at the screen, probably wondering why I was even talking. But then, something shifted. One person leaned in. Another asked a question. Someone else started nodding slowly. And as I kept going, the room started coming alive. People were asking real questions. They were engaged. It felt like they were actually seeing the potential in what I had built. When I showed them the working demo, that's when it really clicked. I remember someone whispering, "Wow." Another said, "Wait, this could really work." And by the end of it, a few people actually clapped. Then the company's co-founder, someone who rarely spoke unless it was serious, looked straight at me and said, "This might be the best thing we've seen in a while." And just like that, I felt like I was floating. All those late nights at my kitchen table, the weekends I stayed in coding and tweaking instead of going out with friends, it felt like maybe it was all finally worth it. For the first time, I actually believed I was about to take the next big step in my career. But then I looked at my boss. He just gave that same faint smile and said, "Interesting. We'll discuss it more." No smile of pride. No excitement. No good job or let's explore this further. Just one word. Interesting. I didn't really know what to make of it at the time. I told myself maybe he was just playing it cool in front of everyone. But I was wrong. I'd find out soon enough what he really meant. A week later, we had a huge pitch scheduled with a potential client. Everyone was talking about it. People were saying this client could bring in millions, maybe even double the company's size. It was a big deal, probably the biggest we'd had all year. And I was excited. Honestly, I thought I'd be in the room. I mean, I had created that new system from scratch. It was my idea, my design, my late nights. I wasn't expecting to lead the pitch or anything, I just assumed I'd at least be there. Maybe to help explain how it worked, or answer questions. Something. But the invite never came. I waited. Checked my calendar again. Refreshed my email. Nothing. Not even a stand by or be available. I tried not to let it bother me too much. I told myself, maybe I'm not senior enough yet. Maybe next time. Still, it stung. That afternoon, I was walking back from the break room when I passed the big glass meeting room. The door wasn't fully closed. Just slightly cracked open. And that's when I heard it. His voice. I stopped. It was my boss. He was in full presentation mode, standing at the front of the room, speaking confidently. I peeked through the opening. And there it was. My slides. The same design. The same layout. The same colors and fonts I had carefully chosen. And then I heard it. My words. He was using the same phrases I'd used in my demo. The same explanation. The same pitch. He even clicked through the live demo I had built. Only now, he was calling it our new idea. Our. I just stood there, frozen. My whole body tensed up. It felt like the air got sucked out of the hallway. My stomach dropped, and it was like someone had just punched me right in the gut. He had stolen it. He took everything I made and put his name on it, without a word. Without credit. Without even inviting me into the room. A few hours later, when the meeting was over, one of my friends from the marketing team came up to me in the hallway. She smiled and said, "Hey, that thing you came up with? That was really cool. Boss nailed the pitch." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream. He nailed it because it wasn't his. But I didn't. I just smiled, this tight, fake smile, and nodded. "Thanks," I mumbled, then walked away. That night, I didn't eat. I just sat on the edge of my bed, replaying the whole thing over and over in my head. I stared at the ceiling, asking myself what I did wrong. I couldn't understand it. I had given everything to that project. I worked late, skipped weekends, believed in it with my whole heart. And I trusted him. I thought he saw potential in me. I thought maybe he'd help me grow. But instead, he stabbed me right in the back. The next day, I couldn't focus on anything. My stomach was in knots. I kept staring at my screen, but nothing made sense. I replayed that pitch over and over in my mind, the way he stood there and claimed my work like it was his. I told myself maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe he'd explain. Maybe there was a reason. So I stood up, walked straight to his office, and knocked. He didn't even look up. He was typing something on his laptop, completely calm. "I just have a quick question," I said, my voice steady, but my hands were already trembling. "Did you show the client my project yesterday?" He didn't pause. Didn't blink. Just kept typing. "We all worked on it," he said flatly. "I just cleaned it up." I stood there in silence for a second, trying to process what I'd just heard. My heart dropped into my stomach. "No one else worked on it," I said, softer now. "It was mine." That's when he finally looked up. He leaned back in his chair, gave this little half smile, the kind people use when they're pretending to be patient, and said, "Sometimes it's not about who has the idea. It's about who knows what to do with it." And just like that, everything shifted. That sentence hit me like a slap across the face. It was so cold, so smug, like he was proud of what he'd done. Like this was just business as usual. I'll never forget those words for as long as I live. I didn't say anything else. I just turned around and walked out. But my legs were shaking. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I felt like I was going to burst. I rushed into the restroom, locked the door behind me, and slid down to the floor. I buried my face in my hands and cried. Not just a few tears, real, body-shaking sobs. I felt small. Powerless. Like the world was telling me I didn't matter. Like no matter how hard I worked, how good I was, someone else could just steal my light and no one would stop them. But then, somewhere deep inside me, something else started to spark. It was quiet at first. Just a whisper. Maybe I don't need him at all. That weekend, I sat on my tiny couch with a mug of cold coffee and stared at a blank page in a fresh notebook. I was still hurting from everything that happened, but also, I was fired up. I picked up a pen, and at the top of the first page, I wrote a question that felt both exciting and terrifying. What if I started my own thing? As soon as I wrote it, I laughed out loud. It sounded insane. What was I thinking? I had no business background, no fancy MBA, no rich investors waiting in the wings. I didn't even have a team. Just me, a worn-out laptop, a decent Wi-Fi connection, and an idea that refused to die. But the more I thought about it, the more I started to believe, maybe it wasn't that crazy. Maybe, just maybe, I didn't need anyone's permission to build something on my own. So I got to work. I stayed up late that night and started watching YouTube videos, real ones, made by people who'd started from scratch. I typed things like how to launch a startup with no money and beginner entrepreneur tips. I listened to free podcasts during my morning commute, while brushing my teeth, even while I cooked. I read article after article, trying to soak in everything I could. I followed forums, subscribed to newsletters. I even reached out to a few people online who had launched small tech tools. Most of them were kind, and almost all of them gave the same piece of advice. Start small. Just start. So I did. I opened my laptop and began rebuilding my project from scratch. I deleted the old files, cleared everything out, and started fresh. I wanted it to be better this time, cleaner, faster, more powerful. It was just me and the screen for hours. I'd lose track of time until I realized it was 3 a.m. and the sky was starting to lighten. Then, one night, I finally did it. I bought a domain name for $12. That tiny purchase felt huge, like signing a lease on a new life. I designed a basic website with the free version of a builder. It didn't look flashy. The colors were a little off. The font was too small. But I didn't care. I wrote out every feature the software could do. No buzzwords, no fluff, just real solutions to real problems. I tested it over and over, fixing bugs, rewriting lines of code, trying to make it smoother. It wasn't perfect. Not even close. But it was mine. And for the first time in weeks, it felt real. I didn't quit my job yet. I couldn't. The bills still needed paying, and I wasn't ready to jump off the cliff without a parachute. So, every single evening after work, I poured whatever energy I had left into my project. Weekends weren't weekends anymore. They became my new workdays. I stopped going to parties. I stopped watching Netflix shows I used to love. Vacations? That was a luxury I couldn't afford, or justify. Instead, I started reaching out to small businesses. Nothing big, nothing fancy. Just local shops, freelancers, people I thought might really benefit from the tool I was building. I messaged them, offered to build custom versions for free if they promised to give me honest feedback. A few said yes. Every piece of feedback was like a treasure. I listened carefully. Some told me the interface was confusing. Others found bugs I hadn't caught. Some had ideas to make the whole thing smoother. So I went back to my laptop, fixing bugs, tweaking the design, reworking the user flow. I tested it again and again. And yes, I failed a lot. I'd spend hours trying to solve problems that seemed impossible at first. But each time, I got a little better. Then, after about 3 months, something incredible happened. I got my first paying client. It wasn't a big contract. Just $300. But when that payment notification popped up on my phone, I cried. I cried because it wasn't just money. It was proof. Proof that someone valued what I had created. Proof that I could build something real, something people wanted, something that belonged to me, made with my own 2 hands. That small payment felt like the first step toward freedom. Once I had 3 clients and a little bit of money saved up, I knew it was time to take the leap. I was scared, terrified, actually, but I was also done waiting for someone else to give me permission. So, one afternoon, I walked into my boss's office and handed him my notice. He didn't even ask why. He just looked up, shrugged, and said, "You're not cut out for this place anyway." I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I smiled quietly and said, "You're right." Walking away from that job was one of the scariest things I've ever done. No steady paycheck. No safety net. No guarantees. But deep down, beneath all the fear, something new was growing inside me. Something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The first month after quitting was brutal. Some days, I barely made enough money to pay rent or buy groceries. I felt like I was barely treading water. But I didn't stop. I kept pushing forward. I sent email after email. I stayed up late coding, fixing bugs, improving the software. I hustled like my life depended on it. Slowly, bit by bit, more clients started to come in. Then, one day, something wild happened. Out of the blue, I got an email from one of my old company's biggest clients. They told me they had seen the software demo during that pitch. They liked it but hadn't signed with the company yet. And now they'd heard the truth, that I was the original creator behind it all. "Are you available for freelance work?" they asked. I nearly dropped my phone. That deal changed everything. It wasn't just any client, it was the kind of client that made me realize I was on the right path. They paid me more than any of my other clients had so far. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to feel real and promising. More than that, they were impressed by the software's capabilities, the very system I had spent months perfecting on my own. But the best part? They didn't keep it to themselves. They referred me to 3 other businesses, small, medium-sized, and all looking for exactly what I offered. Suddenly, I was getting requests every week. At first, I was overwhelmed. I couldn't handle all this work alone anymore. So, I started hiring help. At first, it was just freelancers, people I found online who could help me with specific tasks like coding tweaks, customer support, or graphic design. It felt strange at first, letting others into what I built, but I knew it was necessary. Then, as the work kept growing, I brought on part-time employees. People who believed in the vision, who wanted to grow with me. It wasn't a huge company yet, just a small, scrappy team hustling hard. Less than a year later, I had a team of 5 solid people working alongside me. We were a tight group, all passionate about what we did. And our client list? It was bigger than I ever imagined when I first scribbled that question in my notebook. We weren't a giant corporation by any means, but we were growing, and growing fast. Meanwhile, I started hearing whispers from my old job. Rumors that made my heart race. People were leaving. Clients were unhappy. The project I'd created, the one my boss had stolen, was falling apart. It was full of bugs. Why? Because my old boss and the team didn't really understand how to maintain it. They had no clue what went into building the system, how it worked under the hood. It was like watching a house you built crumble because someone else didn't know how to keep it standing. And then, something unexpected happened. Some of my old co-workers reached out to me. "Are you hiring?" they asked quietly, almost nervously. One by one, they started joining me. People who had been frustrated with the old company's culture, people who wanted to be part of something new, something real. That's when it hit me hard. I hadn't just walked away from a bad job, I had built something better. Something I could be proud of. It was almost 2 years after I quit that I ran into my old boss at a tech event. I wasn't expecting to see him there. The event was buzzing with energy, people networking, swapping business cards, sharing ideas. But then, near the snack table, I spotted him. He looked smaller than I remembered, less confident somehow. Maybe it was the way he stood, or the tired look in his eyes. He saw me and walked over. His smile was tight, maybe a little forced. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said. I smiled back, calm and steady. "Why not? I'm speaking on the panel." His eyes flickered, like he wasn't sure how to take that. Then he glanced down at my name badge. "You're the founder of that startup." "Yep," I said, feeling a quiet pride swell inside me. "Remember the idea you said wasn't mine? Turns out, it was." He forced a laugh, like trying to hide a little sting. "Well, good for you," he said. Then, he said something that really stuck with me. Something I wasn't expecting. "I didn't think you had it in you." I looked right at him, steady and sure, and said, "Neither did I. But now I know I always did." In that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, pride, strength, and a sense of victory that wasn't about proving him wrong, but about proving myself right. I walked away from that conversation feeling taller than I ever had in my life. Like I was finally standing in my own power. Building my own business wasn't easy. Not even close. I failed more times than I can count, sometimes in ways that felt crushing. There were nights when I sat alone in a tiny room, staring at my laptop screen, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. I thought about giving up, about going back to that old job or even taking something low-paying, just to pay the bills and have some peace. But I didn't quit. I refused to let one man's greed, one moment of betrayal, define my entire future. Now, fast forward to today. We have over 40 clients, ranging from small local businesses to larger companies who trust what we build. My little team grew from just me and a few freelancers to a group of talented, passionate people who genuinely care about what we're creating. We have an office, not huge, but it's bright, colorful, and filled with laughter, brainstorming, and the kind of energy that makes you excited to show up every morning. And me? I'm finally living a life I built on my own terms. A life where my work means something, where my voice is heard, and where I get to call the shots. So if you're out there right now, feeling crushed because someone stole your idea, or because someone told you weren't good enough, please hear me. Don't give them the satisfaction of breaking you. Your idea isn't worthless just because someone else took credit. It's still yours. And even more than that, you have more power than you realize. Build your own table. Start small, even if it feels impossible. Fail loudly, and don't be afraid of it. Because every failure is a step closer to success. And when they say you're not good enough, don't waste energy yelling back. Prove them wrong quietly, with your work, with your growth, and then loudly, when your success speaks for itself. Because one day, you'll look back and realize, that stolen idea? It was the beginning of everything. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever faced a moment where someone took credit for your hard work or made you feel small, remember, you're not alone. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories like this one. And hey, if you have a story like this or any questions about starting your own journey, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you and support you however I can. Remember, your future is still yours to build. Keep pushing, keep dreaming, and never give up. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep shining.